son of a bitch.
Groovy.
Hey everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of Timecop, the 1994 sci-fi time travel movie that I gotta tell you, I have a lot of fun with every time I see it. This movie I do not think is well told, is well made really. You know, this isn't gonna be a movie that you're walking out of it being like, man, that movie really made me think about life and the things that we do in it, and it had some big thoughts and all that kind of stuff. No, that's not this. This is just a big dumb action movie that tries to be smart a lot of the time, and a lot of time fails, but I gotta tell you, at the same time, it's my second favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie of all time, only beaten out by Bloodsport, which of course has the Kumite, so how are you gonna compete with that? A movie that is just ridiculous, and I think to a large degree knows that it's ridiculous. Of course, like I mentioned before, it stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he plays, guess what? A time cop. I watched this movie with my wife, and throughout the entire thing there was all these moments, because I'm not gonna lie, she wasn't exactly enthused about watching it with me, and anytime something ridiculous would happen, she would like give me a look, and my explanation to her every time was, I don't think you understand, hon, he's a time cop. And you know, I didn't say anything other than that, and by no means did that really explain the massive plot holes and the illogical things that happen in this film, but it's a lot of fun to say. So if you're ever watching this movie and somebody gives you a hard time, just explain to them that they don't understand. It's a time cop. I feel like you got out of jail pretty free on that thing. So an enjoyable movie. Basically, he plays, again, a time cop, and his job is, in the future there's time travel, and there are people who go back in time to try to enrich themselves by altering history, and Jean-Claude Van Damme's character goes and stops them from doing this thing, and it's a kind of cool concept. Unfortunately, they don't do a great job of keeping time travel straight. I mean, there's all kinds of moments that don't really make any sense. I mean, the final scene in this movie is completely illogical. Essentially, what happens in this movie is you find out that he, at the beginning of the film, he has a wife that he's madly in love with, and she dies, and then he goes and he becomes a time cop, and then at the end of the film, you find out that the reason why she dies is because there are people who went back in time to kill her because he's a time cop, but at that point he wasn't a time cop. It's just the whole logic of the thing completely falls apart. He hadn't done any of the things that would cause them to go back yet, and yet time travel and causality and all that BS, but there's multiple moments where he does things that just completely make it so there was no sense to them going back and getting him in particular. Like, if they were going to try to stop him, why would they go back to try to kill him there? Why wouldn't they just go back and try to make it so that he wasn't made into a time cop to begin with? And there's lots of moments where they have a lot of stroke in the future because of the things they do in the past, and they don't use that to stop him. And I mean, there's just all kinds of BS. Now, I will say this. Everybody who watches Jean-Claude Van Damme movies will know that there are certain things that you could expect, like loving shots of his buttocks, of course, and him doing the splits. And he does the splits in this movie, but I think it's one of the best splits he does in any movie, even though, you know, all of them are awesome because the guy does the splits like bananas. But it actually makes sense for the plot. They figured out a way to make him do the splits in the movie where it makes sense for the plot. Bravo! Bravo! I mean, there's a moment where there's water all over the ground, and there's somebody who's coming back to try to destroy him, and he's got basically like a high-powered taser, and he shoots at him, and it goes and hits the ground, and he does it a split so that none of him is touching the ground, and that guy gets electrocuted. It's pretty great. It's also ridiculous, of course, but it's pretty great. And then another thing about this movie is there is a supporting cast, of course. It's not all Jean-Claude Van Damme. I mean, how would this movie have been different if every single character was played by Jean-Claude Van Damme? It would take a little bit longer to shoot, but it would have been pretty interesting. But Mia Sara plays his wife in this movie, and for those of you who do not know who that is, she is probably best known for playing the love interest in Ferris Bueller's Day pay off, and as an actress, they of course made a huge impact with that film alone. It's remarkable that she really didn't go on to do all that much, except of course Timecop, because this is a cinematic classic. And their relationship in this movie is so funky. I mean, it starts with the moment where they're pretending like they don't know each other in a mall, and he tells her that there's never enough time to please a woman, and Jean-Claude Van Damme, I'm sorry, I know the guy's a good-looking dude, but that's not something that sounds good coming out of his mouth by any stretch of the imagination. And their relationship is pretty interesting as it plays out. And like one of the major parts of this movie is, like I said, at the end of the movie they go back to try to kill him. You find out that that's how he was killed, but when he goes back in time, he has no plan to stop them. He goes back to specifically to that moment. You think he would have memories of it and know exactly how it played out and be able to react to it, but he's just going by the seat of his pants through that entire scene, which is another thing that just absolutely drives me nuts. And I think she does her role well, but it's just not very well written. And you have the main villain of this movie, played by Ron Silver, of course, who is not Andy Garcia, no matter how much he looks like him, and does not have the gravitas of an Andy Garcia. But I think he does a pretty good job in this movie. He's a bit snidely whiplash with his scheme. You know, he's pretty evil for sure. But I think he does a pretty solid job. One of my favorite moments in this movie by far, it involves him, where you see that in the past that his young version gets a cut, and then you see like the scar show up on his face. I thought that was pretty wild. I think he does a pretty solid job in this film. But really, I think this movie really comes down to two things. One, seeing Jean-Claude Van Damme kick butt, and he definitely does in this movie. And then two, I think there's two moments that I think are a lot of fun, where you see people go back in time and use modern technology to get ahead in the past, or just not modern knowledge. And those moments are both really cool. There's a scene where this guy goes back and he's basically holding up some army men who have treasures with them, and he has like modern weapons, but even like more futuristic weapons, I guess you would say. And that was a whole lot of fun to watch, and just to see their reaction to this guy who's dressed in a completely different manner. And yeah, he does. Sorry. He's not dressed in a completely different manner, but he acts in a completely different manner, and he's got this futuristic weapon. I thought that was all really cool. And then there's a moment fairly early on in this film where there's a guy who goes back to play with the stock market, and the way that whole scene plays out, I think is really cool. Especially when at the end of the scene when he gets caught, the way they do to him as a result. Spoiler alert, and don't worry. I mean, if you haven't seen Timecop, it's not really all about the plot, so this isn't a big deal. But just fair warning, spoiler alert. He decides that he's going to jump out a window to try to get away from them and go back to the future for that time period, or modern times, or what have you. And Jean-Claude Van Damme captures him, and when they decide that he's guilty, they send him back to the past to fall from that building. And that's just wild, man. I mean, yeah, he went back in time. He was stealing stuff. But that's quite the punishment, and that's the type of movie this is. Everything's over the top. Everything's pretty hilarious. I think it's just a fun time. So those are my thoughts on Timecop. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. If you're a fan, if you love Jean-Claude Van Damme, if you do, what's your favorite of his films, whatever. Other than that, please hit that like button, hit that share button. It makes it much more likely that other people come check this video out. And if you haven't done it yet, please hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, or if you're new to the channel, that way you can find out when I put out a new video, and you can come and let me know what you think, because I love talking movies with people, and you should be one of them. Other than that, have yourself a good day.